it's Amy D with Amy D Coaching, and today we're going to talk about contingent offers and particularly getting your contingent offer accepted in the seller's market. This is not an easy task, and sometimes it's not actually the path you want to go down, but we all know the setup. You're sitting there with your client, they want to sell this house and buy a new one, and it's such a hot market. We know we're going to get multiple offers on this right away. That is not the problem. The problem is then now we got to go compete and be one of multiple offers on the one they want to purchase, and they might not find, it might take too long to find a place, and then they're going to be homeless if they sell this and don't have a place to go. So often that is kind of like the first idea is, what if we wrote an offer contingent on getting this sold? So something to remember, that if you really want to go that route, and I'm going to explain a couple other options in a minute, but if you really want to go that route, then you need to be prepared to list this home the minute you have an offer accepted. So what you do is, your behavior, you're first going to act as if what we're doing is listing this house. You have the listing contract done. You're going to have, in our area, we have an authorization to exclude from RMLS until a future date. And many areas might have different regulations from how long you can hold a listing off the market. So be sure that you're aware of your state guidelines on that one. But do all the paperwork for this house. Have the photos done. If you do a property video, have your video done. Have your flyers printed. All of your marketing ready to go on this property as if you're listing it tomorrow, because you might be. Now, when you find the property, once they have a contingent offer accepted, instantly list this property with the hope of attracting multiple offers right away. And then once you've secured your new buyer, this is no longer contingent. We're in contract on both. So a couple things to remember. A contingent offer basically means like, okay, they're going to accept this subject to this happening. But in the meantime, if another offer comes in that's acceptable to them, you can get bumped. So if there's already multiple offers on this house, it doesn't make sense because the other offers have already come in. So for that reason, it doesn't really work. And if we're really in this hot market, the amount of time between having this offer accepted and the other offer coming in is going to be a very, very short window. So while you can get this done, it's often not really the best strategy. My favorite strategy is a different kind of contingency. I hear a lot of people call it a reverse contingency. I don't like that language, because no contingencies are reverse. It's just, instead, it is the opposite concept of that, so I see why people call it that. Anyway, they're listing this house. Go ahead and list this house, but when you accept an offer, you accept it with the contingency that it is subject to the seller finding a suitable replacement home. So now, this contract, while they're pending, you are locked in, but the seller, normally all of the contingencies are for the buyer's benefit, but in this case, the seller can terminate if they don't find a suitable replacement home. Now, they would need to refund earnest money, but there would be no other penalties. They would just terminate, sorry, we're not selling our house to you. So the best way to structure this is to give the seller a certain amount of time, right? 2, maybe 3 weeks to find a home. So if we're doing it this way, now all of our prep work is the opposite. We're going to be looking at properties so they kind of know what they want and where, and so they've kind of already got their feelers out. So they're ready to pounce on something. They've been watching the market. They're seeing how fast things are going. So as soon as they get this locked in, they're ready to write an offer. Now we list this property, get the offer in. The window of time is very, very short. The thing to remember is if you just put a sentence in there that it's subject to the seller finding suitable replacement housing and nothing else, then all of the timelines will start, and this buyer is going to do their home inspection. If we get further along the line, they might spend money on the appraisal. So the buyer is selling money or spending money, and if the seller needs to terminate, we haven't really discussed what happened, is the buyer just out? They've now spent $1,000 or more investigating this home, and so they get their earnest money back, but not any of these other fees. So the way I like to structure these is we add another sentence that says all timelines begin the day after the seller notifies the buyer that they have found suitable replacement housing. So it works like this. We get this in contract. Now we go look once we've got something. Now the following day is day one for this inspection period and for this one. So both houses are kind of going along at the same pace, and it makes it really easy to tee it up for this one to close, and then you might do this one closing the next day or 2 days later. You can time it all out so much better when you do that. Some people might not want to do that. Maybe you've got a cash buyer over here, so there is no appraisal contingency, and they're a lot more flexible. And, for whatever reason, maybe they're taking a trip out of the country in a couple weeks, so they don't know if they'll even be here because we don't, right? So there could be some unique situations. And in that case, it's just a simple conversation. Point out to the other realtor that, hey, if they do their inspection now, and we end up not going through, how should that money be handled? So you can write right into the contract, if the seller withdraws due to not finding a suitable replacement home, any money that the buyer has spent will be split 50-50, or will be absorbed by the seller and refunded to the buyer, or will be absorbed by the buyer. They're just out that money. But have the conversation, put it in the contract. It doesn't really matter who pays for what. What matters is that everybody goes into the situation with a clear roadmap of what's going to happen and who's going to be responsible for what in the event that we terminate. Hope that helps. The other solution is just to do an occupy after closing, and depending on financing, sometimes that's not a viable option. And it still is a little precarious, but that would be where we close, and then the seller's going to rent the house back for 30 days. So it doesn't really solve the problem. It just gives them a little bit more time to find their replacement housing. So I hope those are useful tips, and I look forward to doing this again with you soon.